Hi guys, it's Lisa, and today I want to talk a little bit about 5-star ratings. I want to look at my current physical TBR and pick out a couple of books that I think might be 5 stars as well. And afterward we could discuss a little bit what a 5-star is for me and how I could possibly predict whether a book will be one or not. Okay, here we are. This is my physical TBR. Up top we have the nonfiction, which is bleeding over into this little portion, which is more nonfiction. And then this section over here is my fiction. And up there are some old day planners that I'm just keeping there for storage. So as you can see, a couple of books that I've already talked about are still on here, such as The Inventor of Nature by Andrea Wolf up there, and then the duology of The Orphan's Tales by Catherine M. Valente down here. And now that I see them all on this shelf, I'm kind of wondering if they will be 5 stars as well. So let's get a little bit closer. So these here are my fiction books. I've already started a couple of them, like you can see up here. This is a short story collection that I'm still working through. This is a book or another short story collection that I'm working through. Something I've started again here, and then I've already started In the Night Garden as well. But I've put them back on here because I feel like I can still say something about what I think they will be in terms of star rating. So from my fiction shelf, I think The Winged Histories is going to be a 5-star. I've read the first book by Sofia Samatar as well, which was A Stranger in Alondria. Oh no. Oh no. And I've actually heard a lot of good things about this book as related to The Stranger of Alondria as well. A lot of people enjoy this one more. And if her writing is still going to be the same expressive writing that she used in the first book, and I know this is going to be the same world as well. If this is going to have even more coherent stories related to, I think, 4 women who are moving around in this world, I think it's going to be even more interesting than the first book and will definitely be 5 stars. So I've already started these, and I think the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin and The Complete Cosmic Onyx will not be 5 stars as far as I can tell right now. But I am definitely enjoying them. This one is a little bit harder to read, so I'm reading it in smaller chunks. And this one just kind of lost my interest a little bit, but I do want to pick it back up. But I don't think they're going to be 5 stars. A strong contender here is The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson. I really love adventure middle grade, and I'm pretty sure that this has little fairy tales within the story, which is something I absolutely love. And if this explores themes of being a strong girl who maybe doesn't fit in because of it, and her learning to accept herself, well, that's probably going to be a 5-star. So as far as nonfiction goes, I have a lot of options here. A lot of them are about the history of natural history, but I also have some about historical disciplines in here, history of books, history of archaeology, history as a science. But I think that these are all going to be interesting, but there's nothing really that I think is going to be special. Though down here, I think we have 2 contenders. The first one is On the Organic Law of Change, which is a transcript. It's nice and thick, and as you can see, it has the original notebook here. So what this is these are, as it says here, an annotated facsimile editions of the transcripts of Alfred Russel Wallace, his species notebooks. And Alfred Russel Wallace was the other guy who, approximately at the same time as Darwin was thinking about his theory of mutation, he developed a similar theory, and they actually presented it together, though his part of this is often forgotten, and these notebooks kind of contain his train of thought and his reasoning for that theory. So I think that's going to be 5 stars. And then the other one here is House of Lost Worlds. This is a history of the Yale Peabody Natural History Museum, and it has the history of the museum as well as examples of the objects that they have in the museum, and just, I think, fun stories that are going to be really interesting to see, as well as nice illustrations. So I'm looking forward to that one as well, and I think out of all of these two could possibly be 5 stars. So I guess in a future video, maybe somewhere in a year, I'll find this again and I'll see if they actually were. So now that we have an idea of the books on this shelf here and what I think are going to be 5 stars, it might be fun to talk a little bit about what a 5-star book means for me and how I could possibly know that any of these will be 5 stars. So let's head over to my Goodreads page and check out a couple of 5-star books from the past. Now, as you can see from my Goodreads page, I actually have a lot of highly rated books on here. I think most of them are probably 4 stars, and I actually have quite a lot of 5 stars as well. And for me, it's kind of difficult to differentiate an absolute all-time favorite from a book that I just thought was perfect in itself, because I'm not sure if a book can be perfect but not on my all-time favorite list. So I've actually recently tried to rate down some of the books I've read in the past, just kind of reflect on it and think, was this really a 5 star? Is this really an all-time favorite? And I think it's very complicated to reduce your reading life to a 5-star rating system, as is done here on Goodreads, which is one of the reasons I might want to stop using Goodreads, partially because it's owned by the bigwigs as well. But it does make you think about, is reading competitive? Should I only be reading highly rated books, highly rated by others and highly rated by myself? Should I dive into a book that I think might be 3 stars, might be just fine, but that maybe other people rate highly? And it's also a really good example of reading in and out of your comfort zone, because there are a couple of topics that I just know I will like and I will probably rate high. But there are also topics that might be written about in a really good way, that explore something incredibly interesting that I will not pick up because it's not something I'll expect to like. And I know there are booktubers out there who just pick up anything and just kind of see what they like and end up reading a lot of maybe 2 and 3 star books. And that's okay as well. But I've realized that I myself am usually picking up books that I know I'll like. And it's not very common, I think. Well, we can probably see here on Goodreads that I don't really give out 1 stars at all, and very rarely give out 2 stars. And sometimes I read a book and I thought, that was just fine, and then I'll get 3 stars, or that was really good, and then I'll give 4 stars. And when I think, this is so perfect, and this is another thing we could maybe discuss in the future sometime, I think this book deserves 5 stars. Maybe to get the rating up and to get a little bit more publicity for it. So the question is sometimes, do I rate for myself or do I rate for other people as well? Because there are books that I think are really good and really interesting that I just didn't enjoy that much, that would end up getting 3 stars from me. But if it was a rating of do I recommend it, it might be 4 or 5 stars. And this problem is really prevalent in, for example, middle grade books. Because middle grade books are written for a middle grade audience. And if only adults rate it on Goodreads, taking Goodreads as an example here, and they're all like, this is really good for a middle grade, but I didn't enjoy it that much, 3 stars. And then someone looking for a book for their kids, or maybe kids themselves looking for a book to read, see that it's not really rated that well and they'll just skip over it. Well, maybe this would have been the perfect book for them. It really kind of, you would think that it kind of needs a different system where you read one for yourself, for your own catalog, and then you rate one for would you recommend, yes or no. And I think a lot of the time I would say that there are books that I love that maybe I wouldn't recommend, or books that I didn't really enjoy but that I would recommend to almost anyone to pick up just so they've read about the topic. Now you can see here that my ratings are, as I said, generally very high. And this does mean that I read in my comfort zone a lot. And there are some books that I've picked up on the advice of other people that I think are really important, and I'm glad I've read them, but that I eventually didn't rate that highly and didn't necessarily want to purchase for my shelves. In most cases, this is a book I've read on audio through an app that I just take 1 month of subscription from, and then I just binge all the books that I don't think I'll maybe enjoy as much, but they come highly recommended. And then they don't end up on my shelves, which feel very curated to my specific tastes, because there are whole sections on here, as you might have seen in a previous video where I talked about my bookshelves, that are on similar topics or that have similar genres kind of connected to them. And there are some books on here that I barely talk about that don't really fit into any category. For example, My Sister, My Love, and it was definitely one of my past favorites. But I probably wouldn't pick it up again. This I probably found on some secondhand sale, or I got from my mom or something when I was younger, and then I just read it because I basically read anything back then. And I think that maybe I want to get back to that a little bit more, to just read anything that I come across. And one of the reasons I don't do that is because I very specifically curate what I spend my money on. And a lot of the time I do actually buy the books before I read them. So in the future I might want to get a library card again and just explore a little bit more with my reading. And one of the reasons that I don't really do that is because I love reading in English. And here in the Netherlands it's pretty hard to just walk in somewhere and find good English books. I think the majority of the library here is in Dutch. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does mean that if I want to read an English book that I'm interested in, purchasing is the most convenient option here. And again, that leads to me only purchasing and thus reading books that I know I'm going to love. Hence me staying in my little book bubble. So maybe I should make it a habit to just once a year have a month of an audiobook subscription and just kind of try new things out to maybe expand my reading a little bit. And yes, that could lead to me having some more 2 or 3 star reads in my list here. But I think it'll also really be able to surprise you in what kinds of books you didn't think you'd like, and then suddenly you'd end up just finding a whole new genre or a whole new topic to read about. So that might be fun. I hope you enjoyed diving a little bit more into what a 5-star actually is. If you should try to only read 5 stars or only buy books that you think will be 5 stars, and what the value of rating actually is. Yeah, I guess that was it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!